Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Scrap Time podcast. I'm joined here with Ben Nissim, and this is season 2, episode 3, 4, or 5. I'm not too sure which one we're on. We couldn't figure that one without with the chats, but either way, we know we had a little bit of a holiday break. We had some time to kind of just chill and relax. Didn't have too much Call of Duty to talk about because everyone was kind of waiting. We had some spawn changes and stuff that we'll get into, but yeah, Ben, how was your break? How are your holidays, and how are you feeling?
Break was good. What did I do during the break? I just played a lot of War. I actually played a lot of Warzone with your players. With
I saw some of the clips, Ben. I saw some of the clips, and I'm not gonna lie, I was not happy with your gameplay. I saw the clip of the guy up the stairs, dude.
I'd like to get more reps if I had people to play with. I hate playing solo Warzone.
Wait, so
I people to play with, I get more reps.
Why are you getting no reps?
Because nobody wants to play with me.
You're telling me at night no one's playing Warzone with you?
Yeah, they ego me.
They ego you. I don't believe it.
Yeah, they just play West Coast. It's Ian, Trap, and them.
Wait, West Coast? It doesn't matter what pings on Warzone. You can't.
I'm saying I don't give a shit. I'm saying I don't give a shit. Well, I need more reps. I need people to fucking play with. That's all.
Okay. I mean, yeah, I have my morning squad for the most part, but yeah, dude, I feel like at night, I feel like there's got to be some of those people in the team speak. Are they egoing you because you're not good enough, Ben? Is that what it is?
I guess that's the issue.
No way. Listen, the only clip I saw of you was when you tried to slide up the stairs to trade Simp's kill, and you couldn't see anything in the staircase, and then you started raging.
Legit, bro. Listen.
I mean, you got to get your shit situated, bro. That that's a settings issue.
I'm saying, like, for whatever reason, that building next to like the Bye Firehouse, like, if you
I know the building.
That staircase is so dark.
It's not that dark.
The guy was just lying at the. Well, then I guess I need to get better fucking graphics settings.
You do. We gotta get you. We gotta get you with some good stuff.
Then I had double digits the next fucking map. I just got costed by people going rogue who will be unnamed on the next map, but it's all good.
Okay.
I almost had 3-piece to win at the end of the game, but
3-piece to win.
It's all good. Other than playing Warzone, just I went home a bit for the holidays, came back. Obviously, it's winter here, so I can't really play golf. In fact, we got snow on the ground. It snowed overnight. Just kind of been enjoying stuff. Like the break was too long for me, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
And then it really sucks because I didn't really think, and we'll get into it, the matches this weekend were all that good. So it's kind of like, it's still kind of on an level. But I know that, like, for your team, right? You guys were, you took a few days off for Christmas and New Year's, but for the most part, you guys were still scrimming a lot, right?
We took Christmas Eve and Christmas Day off, and then that was really about it. And then we took New Year's Day and New Year's Eve off those 2 days. Yeah, we took like 4 days off over the break, and that was really it. Other than that, we scrimmed every day. Because I mean, with the spawns changing so much and stuff, I feel like that, like, especially with just the way the players on like FaZe are, they just always want to play anyway. And then with the spawns changing, and that just gave them a full excuse to absolutely just grind the shit out of it and figure it out. So. Yeah, we didn't. We didn't have too much days off, but it was good. The boys have been grinding, and I think it paid off. So I'm happy with them so far.
Oh, cool. Let's get into. I mean, we're talking about what's happened in the past. Obviously, I think we'll talk about more about it next week once it's out. But we got season 1 Reloaded coming up before the last week of matches this weekend, and I think the biggest thing, there's some Warzone stuff coming. Obviously, new contracts, and I'm excited to make a run at that because I think the skin is good. But I think the big thing for a lot of people watching the show is we're getting a new map called the Rio, but more importantly, we're getting a rank play finally live. Are you excited for a rank play to roll out tomorrow at 10 a.m. East time?
I'm not gonna lie, I'm worried about rank play. I know I said this last year, but dude, I think Treyarch does a really good job with rank play. I think like everything they've done with rank play is how Call of Duty should have been happening, earlier in the years and whatnot. But dude, last year's ranked, as soon as you hit Crimson or higher, and I know that's like a smaller percentage of the majority of people that play ranked. Like, I know there's not as many Crimsons and Iridescents than there are Bronze, Silvers, and Golds, but dude, there was an actual rage hacker in like every single one of the games. Like, my morning streams, I remember it vividly, were just like, hey, how many hackers can we get banned today? Like, not, hey, like, how many games can we win today? Like, it was just like kind of just getting people live banned because they were just dropping 75 on Embassy Hardpoint, just like, rage hacking at Iridescent over and over and over again. So I'm excited for ranked because of everything it brings, but I'm also just nervous in the sense that I don't think they're going to fix that problem. So I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm excited when I'm not. So I know the level 55 requirement might help out a little bit too. But yeah, I just think at the higher levels, especially for the super sweaty players, like I hope they do something about the cheating situation, because that was not fixed last year. Even towards the end of the year, it was bad. So that's my only worry. But other than that, I'm excited. We'll see.
I hope. Well, what would be nice is that there was a wave like today of bans that anyone that's like thinking about just like dodging has to now, like, if they really want to go live before rank play, they gotta like try and hustle to get to 55, which we're not gonna be able to do by 10 a.m. tomorrow.
Mhm.
At least like for like the first couple of days are clean, but I'm not holding my breath. And people say like play console and it's fixed. Like, I guess you're playing tournaments to an extent or whatever, but like still like, I mean, I guess if you turn crossplay off, you're good. But yeah, on PC, like, it is going to be at higher levels. Like, you're gonna have people walling, you got people aim locking. Like, I talked to Parasite a lot, and he, obviously was a big, almost full year rank grinder last year, like even into the summer, and like, dude, even the summer was bad.
Oh, dude, it's real bad.
Yeah,
And I know I play in the morning, so I technically like we were getting like just like a lot of weird lobbies with a lot of hackers in it, and like I know the morning to the nighttime, like just people that play are just like a different player base. And I think in the morning there tends to be more hackers, just weirdly enough. But regardless, like my experience on ranked last year was so fun until I hit iridescent top 250, and then it was just miserable. And then it just kept getting worse and worse, and I don't think they did anything about it. So we'll kind of have to wait and see to what they do with that. But that kind of brings me to my next point. I know this is talked about on the flank a lot with like the whole like, not having a lot of challengers events and stuff. But I also still think like I didn't really say anything on the flank because I wasn't on the show. But yeah, I feel like console only like might be like a must for that challengers? Too. Like well, I think it should be for challengers. I tweeted this, and not a single challengers player that I'm really familiar with, I think, tweeted me back unless I missed it. But like, I think, I think the PS5 fixes a lot of issues, including having more events because it's not as expensive. So like, I feel like the console only move like wasn't talked about nearly enough by the community, or it's just not possible. But I think that should be looked at. And then again, it's even for rank play, like if I was playing rank play all day, I think I might play PS5 only. No lie, I think I really would. That would solve so many issues. But
I mean, so a couple things. So just to give context of what Chris is talking about, the console only thing. So there were some challengers announcements at the end of last week. Looks like we're getting 2, maybe 3 lands, which is kind of an L. But the rest of the formats like fairly as expected. And I think, Adam Apicello then came on the flank on Friday, kind of talked about, the move to PC has really priced out some of these teams running events from really being able to run a challengers event because of all the extra infrastructure and manpower and other stuff required to operate that many PCs. And it's a lot of PCs, right? We're talking 16 stations or 8 consoles each for 16 stations times like another 10 or 15% for attrition. Like we're talking like 200, 300 PCs. Like it's a lot.
Yep.
And you got to maintain that fleet. It's a cost both on the event organizers, cost on the publisher. And I think to Adam's point, and I think what to your point is, and something that Halo in particular, I think grapple with first couple years of HCS because they wanted to also be cross-platform is like, at the end of the day, you're going to do the math, and it's like, well, for challengers, like, is the downside that big? Do that on console, and it's really not. Yeah, you lose some frames, you lose some visual performance that you'd get on PC, right, with better graphics cards, but like the ease of access, the infrastructure is going to be way better.
Well, and my thing is like, so I'm excited to talk about this topic just a little bit because I actually think this is I feel like it wasn't taken as serious, I guess, or maybe maybe it is in the league. I'm not sure, but like I truly do believe that if all the challengers players were complaining about not playing enough, and I saw people going back and forth about like stop crying about it, like it is what it is, like just get better and you'll be in a league, and there was a bunch of conversation about it, but I genuinely do think the more opportunity to play as a challenger to prove yourself is like super, super important. And I know playing on PS5 is not, what you want, like with the visual performance and everything that you just said, you lose some frames and yada, yada. But I truly think like if you're a challengers player, like playing on PS5 only and like pushing for that, if that were to mean that you have instead of 3 lands, 5 or 6 lands because it's actually affordable and people can actually have the money to run some more events and it like actually makes that whole entire scene better that way. let alone then also there's not a lot, you know, you're not cheating as much. Like the cheating would go so much more down where you wouldn't have any situations where like people are playing in these like elite tournaments and qualifying for champs, but they're actually just looking through walls and then they get the champs and they get banned. Like that whole situation last year was crazy. Like I think it fixes a lot of issues in that scene. And then even if you're doing really good in challengers on a PS5, if you get brought up to the league, like all you would be doing is just upgrading your setup so it would be even better for you. So like I think from almost any angle, playing on a PS5 only like challengers would like be something that the league should actually seriously look into and that the challengers players should probably push for if it means that they get more time to play and opportunity, because I think that would just make everything way better. I know it's not as fun to play on a PS5. I fully get it, but like still, I think that would help the scene out a lot because I think 2 to 3 events is not enough, but at the same time, spending a insane amount of cash to have something that makes you no money is also really hard to justify, especially when times aren't very good right now. So I think that's a really good compromise to have because I think the challengers talent pool and the challengers scene in general is what keeps the league going. Like that's the talent pool that are going to be the future pros, and you absolutely need to cater to that. You know, community. It's very important, but at the same time, like you have to find a way to actually give them more opportunity to play. And I think switching the console is actually something that should be actually looked at. But I don't know.
I agree. I think my guess is just sort of from what I know on the inside. I think um Activision, again, the problem with the PC challengers is that someone's got to maintain a kit of all this PC equipment. Consoles are a little bit easier to source, like a couple hundred of than PCs.
Yeah.
And all of these publishers, and not just publishers, like big companies, all have sunsetting policy if gear gets over a certain age. And I think that if you think about, what happened with COVID, my guess is a bunch of this PC gear is, especially PCs they probably use for like BlizzCon back in the day, right? Because that would be the
Mhm.
only reason I can think of Activision would have a lot of PCs. I would assume at this point because their last BlizzCon and this one was a couple of years ago, like some of that gear is sunsetted, so they have like a equity problem in getting enough gear to be able to run these events. But I think in general, and I think Adam's point on Twitter was point of like now that Activision, Microsoft are one company, it's a very easy conversation about getting Xboxes to do this next year, and it being
That's true too.
really
I didn't
not
even
that
think of
big
that.
of an internal expense, bro, because it's an accounting thing. Like them sourcing consoles internal in their own organization is like fairly way more straightforward than having to vendor out someone to build PCs, maintain that gear. Like there's just a lot more internal cost control they can do to make that work. And I think to your point, the challengers scene should support that because it would lead to easier running more events. So,
Yeah. But when I
um,
tweeted it out, I don't think I got a single challengers player again that
it
I'm super
was like,
familiar
no.
with that like
Yeah.
that said anything that they'd be down for it, which means either A, they didn't see the tweet or just decided not to interact, which is whatever, or they just don't want that to happen either. But I don't know. I think that that should be something that's seriously looked into because the future of Call of Duty is always going to rely with the challengers players and then making sure you can actually run those events and not lose hundreds of thousands of dollars running that part of the event should also, find a compromise and do it quickly. I feel like it's just like so important to make sure like that situation is fixed for the future of the league and the COD because again, they are just as much money as they don't make for you when you run those events, they are also very important for the longevity of the league. So I feel like they need to figure something out.
So I've seen like what it costs to run a challengers event. I've also
Mhm.
seen historical costs and like
Yeah.
to Adam's point on the Friday call, the Friday conversation we had on the flank, like that cost is, people say from the CWL era, I would say that those costs have doubled, potentially tripled in some markets
Yeah. So
due
why
to
would you run a
both.
challengers event then? That's the problem, right?
So this gets to a complicated thing is like, I feel like, I think I agree with what Hector said on the watch party. There's a little bit of nuance in what I tweeted, which is
I don't
basically
think I heard
like,
it. Yeah.
basically like anyone that runs a CDL major should have to run a challengers event. But there's a complexity in who covers the cost of said challengers event.
Mhm.
And at the end of the day, if the org's like, listen, we can run a banger event for the challengers thing, we need help cost covering that. There are two solutions. Solution one is that teams should try and partner with another organization to do like a combo event. Or two, the league should subsidize the costs of challengers events because, as Adam pointed out on the Friday, called the path to participation, the bottom part of the funnel, the bottom part of the pyramid, drive people to spend money on the ecosystem, to buy the game every year, to go to the events. Like they buy into the system. They are your hardcore. They are the 0.01% of people that play COD that care about comp COD. Like that is your core audience. Um, and for the leagues to subsidize that, it's a drop in the bucket for what Activision Microsoft spends on any
Mhm.
marketing endeavor they have throughout the year. And so it's a solvable problem on the publisher side. And look, the solution is, yeah, we can subsidize it, but we got to move the console. Let's fucking do it.
Yeah, no.
Because instead of this conversation, which is right now, which is okay, Toronto's doing the challenge event W. Boston, of all the organizations in CDL, Boston's is doing by far the best sport challengers right now. W, right? No
Mhm.
hezzy, brand challengers event, sold instant team passes, like they do events at Helix, they have an amateur team, like they give a shit. But there's questions now. I know one of the Heretics co-founders tweeted they're trying to make a challengers event happen for Major 2, but it's not set in stone. We've heard nothing about Carolina, which is making me assume that they don't want to do one.
Yeah.
Right? Because at the end, because not to be fair to Carolina, but like I can understand it because we're getting to like the end of May. Their challenge event would be what? End of May, beginning of June. Actually, it's the middle of June. I don't remember what Major 4 is, but like traditionally, even during the CWL era, like you weren't getting a lot of team signups that late in the year for a challengers event, right? First couple events, you can sometimes get 256 team passes if it's a big, opening weekend type event. We get into the end of the spring, summer, like your mid-tier, bottom-tier amateur teams, like those people are like, okay, well, I'm not going to go to the event, get double rounded, and waste all this cash. Like, I'm not going to go. So you're probably going to get 50, maybe 60 signups at that point. I can understand why it's a tougher math equation for Carolina, but the league needs to step in
But
and cover
yeah.
their costs.
Well, that's what
Yeah.
I was gonna say too. I do think everything that we're talking about, the way it is ran, that the teams have to cover everything is also probably not the best system in that sense. Where I feel like the league could definitely like step in and help out in certain ways depending on the budgets and all that. But yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know. I just thought it was a really interesting topic that wasn't really talked about much. But I just feel like it fixes so many problems if you do go to console only, and it doesn't. It definitely does suck where you're not playing on PC at the highest level that you can and all that stuff. I get it. But I think that would fix a lot of issues. And also a big thing that I'm worried about too, I know we were talking about cheaters when it comes to rank play. If there is only two events, like I hate to say this, but it's just the reality of it. Like there are going to be a lot of people that don't have to go to a LAN for majority of the year to prove themselves on LAN. So like people are going to try and get away with cheating. It is just the absolute brutal truth of that. Like why wouldn't you try to do that and be like, people are weird. The COD community has a lot of weirdos in it that are going to try some weird shit. And if there's no LAN for them to like show up and prove themselves and all that other stuff too, like it can get real sketchy really quick. So that's even like another reason why I feel like that should be looked into, because that is just how it goes. If there's not a lot of LANs to go to, like people are going to want to win money and make a name for themselves. So hopefully they can get picked up and like,
We've already had one player in Challengers last year get banned.
Like, and he got banned, and he was already a pro player before. And like, again, so it's just like you just never know who you can trust, and it's scary, and it's gonna have people doing weird stuff. And so if all the cost stuff that we just talked about isn't enough, I truly think like the integrity of just all the challengers not having the dude. I feel so bad right now for challengers players. I understand if you're good enough, you'll be in a league and all that stuff. I do think that argument is fair, but like. Right now, dude, if you're a challenger player, like every team you play against, like you don't even know if you're playing legit right now. Like it's kind of sketchy. It's weird. I don't know. I think there needs to be. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. In terms of like top 4 or 5 teams.
I mean,
like
of course, the top 4 or 5 teams.
Yeah,
of course.
But you would have said that. But nobody would have thought that Jimbo was
exactly.
Again, nobody would have thought that Jimbo was cheating. So like, I totally hear you on that. And it's like there's also other things that people listen. We don't have it as bad this year, but like last year the difference between playing online with sound equalization and going to the LAN, that makes a huge difference in how people play in certain game modes. Like the LAN environment is where you make your bread and butter, and the fact that for challengers we're getting 2 events plus champs guaranteed, maybe 3 plus 1 is I think not enough. So, in the world, I know some of your chat say Riot doesn't ask LCS teams to run events. LOL. Like agreed, the publisher, the vendor, the production vendor, TO should be running events.
Yeah.
Like it is in every other scene. Hopefully
that's a whole other conversation.
Model.
Yeah.
But what next year and future years, we need to have more challengers LAN activity. If we can't, last point is like if we can't do it by attaching to events, there are plenty of LAN centers, big LAN centers. Boston owns one. Felix said at Foxborough, if you went to Boston and said we will give you pro points to sanction event, I think they would do it in a fucking heartbeat. So hopefully people can figure that out. We talked about it a lot last week. If you haven't seen the Flank episode, Adam Apicella, I recommend you go check that out.
Yeah.
Let's
Move on.
Let's talk standings. Let's set the stage for our conversation about where the CDL is at, because this year I think is, over the summer, when it became clear that the 100 Thieves team, LA Thieves team, whatever you want to call it, was going to, kind of blow up. Sam obviously retired, and there's an expectation that, with all the players, free agents on their teams, they may not stick. And they didn't. And so one of the top 5-6 teams in the league blew up, and 3 of those, one retired, 3 of those players went to good teams. There's an expectation once all the rosters were settled that this year might be top heavy. And Chris, you want to go ahead and pull up the standings in the CDL right now?
Yeah. Let me.
It is. Go ahead. I'll just keep explaining.
No, yeah, you're good. I was gonna say I don't know what's gonna. Oh, this works. I'll say I'm on a new streaming PC.
What happens with the scene?
Yeah, I'll say I'm on a new streaming PC, so I just didn't know what was about to happen. But we're good.
We have no. We could have. Oh, that's all good. So Chris is gonna pull up the standings. I'm gonna give you guys kind of set the stage right now while Chris shows you visually what's going on between OpTic, Toronto, FaZe, and New York. When those teams have played a team other than those 4, they have played 18 times this season. The top teams have won 17 of those matchups. I just want to repeat that again. Top 4 teams in the league right now. It's everybody else who is in top 4. If you want to zoom in real quick, Chris as well, so it's a little bit more zoomed in on the standings. The top 4 teams are 17 for 1. So I think right now the league that we have.
No, that's not how you do it. 1 second.
It's like control. And
is
then
it?
Like drag.
Yeah, I'm on the 60% keyboard, so it's all confusing. But I got it. Hold up. Keep going.
You use the triple dots on the top right. But anyway, so like where we're at is, those top 4 teams. Basically, where I think the league is at. And I don't know if you agree with me. You got basically top 4 teams. You've got Seattle, I think, is probably fit 6. Then you've got about 3 other teams like Boston, LAG, and Miami that could be top 6, but they could also be top 8. Then you've got 4 other teams, including Minnesota, Thieves, Carolina, and Vegas, that are basically sitting on like 1 win and are likely facing roster changes / dead last, placing at page 1. So there's just like basically like kind of 4 tiers of teams, but the gap between that first tier and even the second tier of team, right? Because considering how Seattle played against the top 4, like it is, it's ugly.
Oh, is the graphics off too because of the 1440p?
Yeah, you just gotta put your cam above the layer on it, and then you're good.
Yeah, but no, everything's a little weird.
Chris is trying to visualize the standings right now. Like anyone with 5 wins right now, because it's an unbalanced schedule, right? So some teams have played. Oh, RIP.
Yeah, dude, anyway, I have to get this all situated for next episode.
Okay, for next episode. But I'll describe basically our situation right now. So right now, teams have either played 5 or 6 games, because of the way the schedule works. Some teams will have 1 match this weekend, some will have 2, but at the end of the day, everybody will play 7 games. Anyone on 5 wins, that's FaZe in New York right now, both 5-0, are in, probably getting top seeds. Toronto and OpTic are 4, and once they have played 5 games, they just have 1 loss. Toronto to Boston, OpTic to New York. They're in. And then you've got 2 teams on 3 wins. Miami's 3-2 and Seattle's 3-3. They're in, but I don't think it's really, for Seattle, definitely not possible to get top 4 seed. I think Miami could theoretically, if some upsets happen. Then you basically, those 2 teams are in, and basically it leaves 6 teams fighting for 2 spots between LAG, Boston, Minnesota, Carolina, Vegas, and Thieves. But I really think it would need to take a miracle for anyone of the bottom 4 teams to make it. So I don't know what you think about the top heavy league, Chris. Like, this wrong gets a question to you. It's like, obviously, look, there is a bit of a skill gap. Let's not beat about the bush about it. Obviously, this game has got red dots. The last game didn't. So there's some, like less like randomness, sound EQ, less randomness. Do you think that's it, or do you think there's something else that's going on here? Why New York, FaZe, OpTic, and Toronto are so far ahead of everybody else, or so much better than everybody else?
Well, I think usually, like, I feel like usually people get ahead in the earlier year. A lot of the times though, teams that aren't, quote unquote, as talented, usually try and use the early year to get ahead, just so like they can like have that like edge. I feel like a lot of the top 4 teams also use that to their advantage this year and came out like grinding for the most part. But also, I mean, I think 150 health is the most underrated thing. Like I think 150 health, and those gunfights being just a little bit, even though it's like a small percentage, but it's just a little bit more consistent where you have to track a little bit more and hit that extra bullet, and like there's a movement with it too. There's sliding in 100th health. Like I just think you see teams win more clutch gunfights just consistently. Like it's hard to slay sometimes, like throughout an entire best of 5 series, like right. So I think that's also another thing too. But some of the series have been close, but yeah, no, I just think like right now, like it's just kind of a little bit of both of that, and just people playing well. Like I think the top 4 teams are on their shit right now.
Bro, I want to expand on a point you said, because this is actually like my biggest thing I've harped on stream. My stream probably tired of me talking about this. You said earlier, your team, right? You guys went 3-0, I think, to start the season. And you guys only took like 4 days off during, a 2.5 week break. And I know that more teams now have international players, Riot players from Europe. There's at least one player in the league, Pred, that's from, Australia. And I know that people want to go home for the holidays, see family, but also there were 6 months prior to do that. Like, I just think to your point, like, especially for the teams in the bottom, because I can understand for top teams, Toronto takes this holiday break off every year and they're fine.
They always do,
manage it. But for the teams at the bottom, especially Vegas, Carolina, Minnesota Thieves, like the fact that you guys were already qualified for Major 1 basically by the time before Christmas happened, and those teams just didn't like try and do their best to grind to keep their spots in the league, and they just accepted we're just going to take 2 weeks off, come back and see what happens. I don't know how you feel, but that feels insane to me.
Yeah, I mean, my mindset is like much more like grind. Yeah, like that's how I was when I was a player too. You should like grind, like just always try and stay ahead, always try and up your game, always try and improve yourself to like just be as good as you can. Of course, you have to try and find a balance of taking a few days off. I mean, we took 4 days off, but I just think that mindset of like trying to be the best team you can be to always give yourself a chance of winning is incredibly important. So yeah, like I don't think people should be taking like crazy amounts of time off. Some teams do, and it works for them. Like every team is going to be different at the end of the day, but I'm a big believer in just like trying to stay ahead and always grinding and making sure you're, not falling behind. The league is it's a long season, but it's also a short one,
Yeah.
At the same time.
Toronto point, like they don't generally, the biggest break they generally take every year is those 2 weeks around.
They usually always do it.
Other than that, they're usually like with you guys, usually like one of the top grinders. I just don't, again, like.
And it works for them though. That's the thing. It's not like that's ever really hurt them too bad. So
yeah, they've been like you guys the last couple of years. They're making it to Saturday on Champs, like
but
Sunday.
The thing I'll say about Toronto though is also Toronto is a team that like they can take a month off, and they're still probably going to be a top 4. Yeah, like they're good. They're just a very talented team.
Set.
Like they're in a good spot.
They're set. They're going to Champs. But the problem with the teams at the bottom, look, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Right now, you can make the case for 4, maybe 5 teams make a change in the league right now after Major 1. Like half the league just fucking 1-2 change. Like a lot of players, right? Potentially 10, maybe 11, 12 players might not have spots after Major 1, or they were going to move to a different team.
They might. I mean, no one wants to be stuck at the bottom.
Yeah. But the players on those teams, I'm so confused. Like, wouldn't it behoove you and your team, to your point, Chris, to be ahead and be able to manage the flow of the season more effectively? To go to the first event, have an opportunity to place top 6 or top 4, and they'd be like, okay, well, we have some 1, 2, 3 things to work on. We know there's going to be peaks and valleys for the season, but we're ahead and we can kind of make it work. Instead, the worst thing that can happen is if you're like one of these teams, and we'll get to them, where you've got 1 win in a game mode or 1 win in 2 game modes. You're clearly the 11th to 12th best team in the league, and you're not trying to get better over the break. You're just kind of accepting that your team sucks. And then you get back after Major 1, and like the mindset on those teams has got to be messed up. Basically, we're just playing for stats. Like, I don't get it. I don't know how management of those teams does it happen. Those teams have veteran players. I don't know how the veteran players are getting away with that mentality. If I were a rookie, I'd be like, I don't know what the fuck's going on here. I don't know. That shit pissed me off all break, and I want to talk about on this show because it's just crazy to me for the bottom team in the league. But anyway,
yeah, I don't know how long every team took off, so I don't want to be as.
Well, I know.
Yeah, you might know more than me. That's not something I've paid attention to heavily. So like, yeah, maybe like you might know more than me with why you're so pissed off. So it's like, yeah, I don't want to, because like I don't want to throw some shade at teams, and then like realistically they've actually been grinding. They just kind of stink right now. Like that's also just a possibility that they're just not playing well. But yeah, no. So I'm not fully sure. So yeah, maybe. But I agree with you. You don't want to be in a situation where you come home from Major 1, you're behind. Now you have to we make a change, or we say you have like, there's a bunch of stuff, and then it becomes stressful. It becomes harder, and then you're playing catch up, and then it's not a situation you want to be in. I agree. So
there were teams, Chris, that took basically the 18th to like the 3rd off. They basically didn't play for about 16 to 15 days. Right.
Yeah, well, like a lot of the people that we scrimmed in those days were amateur teams, so that makes sense. Yeah.
There's like 3-4 teams that kind of played somewhat consistent to that break. Because you guys, LAG played a bunch. I think Miami played a bunch.
Look at LAG right now.
Yeah, and for one of those teams like LAG, and we'll get to them, like I think that practice has paid off because
definitely
suddenly in the top 6 conversation. But anyway, let's move on. We'll kind of check on that as we develop and
of course
see how it worked out for some of these teams. As always, chat, we will try and talk about all of the teams on this show, but we may not spend 25 minutes talking about every team because some of these teams are fucking horrific. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. They're bad. I don't want to spend too much time talking about them.
Sure, that, and I also have a hard cutoff at 10 o'clock, so we have to make sure we also get through this.
One. So, okay, so we got to get through. We have an hour to talk about 12 teams. All right. And people are saying in my chat that I think your stream's just lagging a little.
No way.
It could be me. Oh, it's me. No, it's me dropping frames.
I was saying I'm not dropping any frames. Don't tell me that. Okay.
Yeah.
I was we had enough issues today.
If I'm dropping frames, it's just the snow on the ground. I don't know. Whatever. Shit always just out there when it's snowing. Anyway, let's as always start off. We talk about your team. You guys had 2 matches against LAG and Vegas. The LAG series was fairly competitive, even though it was a 3-0. I think LAG had a decent look at beating you guys on both the respawns you played on sub-base hardpoint and control invasion. You guys did go ahead and win those along with the S&D Karachi. I thought you guys went pretty clean. And then the other series was interesting. They were having technical issues on the broadcast when that series kicked off. So no one saw what happened on Did you guys even see what happened on Terminal Hardpoint, like the coaches?
RJ did. RJ did because like he's like there. Yeah. So I was getting that's how I was updating you guys because he was giving me like live updates.
You were playing. You were getting updates from RJ, and you were updating Ace and was updating us. There were like 3 layers.
There was a long list of updates that were going through, but I knew you guys wanted them, so I was trying to make sure I can like text it to you. Yeah. I was also texting management the updates too, so I was firing off text left and right on my phone. I was firing off text left and right during that whole entire thing.
Chris is working his phone like he's Woj.
Yeah, but that terminal literally just started by. I mean, we went up, we started the map or whatever. 1 second, let me ban this fucking moron. And then freaking we went up like 180 to like 100 was around the score. And P2, P3 came up, and we were like set up and like ready to win, and we get like overchild and like got broken, and then like it became close, and then apparently draws a 4-piece to win the game, like some crazy shit happened. But yeah, no, we were like we played that map really well, but we kind of trolled by just like almost running it down too much on that map.
In the 11th minute, you and I talk about this a lot, right? This usually 12 hills per hardpoint game, right? You're assuming 2 rotations and a couple hills after. You got to play all 12 minutes flowlessly.
And sometimes you're just dominating so much that you just like low-key heat check, and that's kind of what we did. So that's nothing to worry about.
But anyway, we'll get to the overall thoughts. But you guys played 2 other maps in that series. The S&D Skid Row was not close, and we'll get to Vegas in control. But anyway, so you guys went 6-0 on the week, but some of those maps were close. Like, do you feel good about the way you guys played this weekend? Do you feel like you're making good progress?
Yeah, we played great. I mean, the maps versus the Guerrillas, like. I wasn't worried about the control at all. The hard point, to be fair, like we just didn't generate too many kills in the hard point. Like there was a few times in the hard point where like we were actually set up and like, you know, if we start generating kills and you know, just finesse and do what we need to do, like we could have like taken over that game and more. So like we were playing fundamentally correct. Like they outslayed us and we won. It was just literally when we had the opportunity to take over and make that extra step, we fell flat, and like LAG were getting kills and they played well, so there's nothing you can really do about that sometimes. And then that control, we outplayed them the entire time. Like sometimes invasion is invasion. Like we played a way better offense than them twice in a row. It gave us last round defense. Granted, we almost had a crazy hiccup on it, but like that's not something from my perspective that I like. Again, we played those offenses really strong where we definitely put ourselves in a winning position, and then that winning position led to us winning. So I wasn't upset about that.
Invasion control offensive win percentage, 18.33% right now. Maybe one of the lowest of any maps we ever played, including Fortress last year.
That's weird though, because I feel like in scrims it's not like that. Like when I watch our
Yeah,
team
but you
scrim,
know
like I feel like
people
it's not
play
like that. But of
differently in
course it's
control
different.
and
Yeah, I get
scrims.
it.
Yeah, people don't value their life as much,
True.
and we've talked about this on past shows. I will say on the sub-based hardpoint, like to your point, that's probably LAG's best hardpoint map. I was
Yeah.
surprised you guys played it, but I know
Well,
you
we
guys were trying
were
to
trying to get
play.
reps on it. Yeah,
Yeah, trying to get reps.
we wanted to play sub base against them specifically because they're good at it. Like that, like we want to, you know, that's like their best map. Like that would have been perfect for us to get a rep on that map and see how we can do it. And granted, they're a great team on that map specifically as well, and they've been grinding. So that was like really good for us. And we played it again fundamentally well. We just didn't generate kills when we needed to, and they played pretty good. But so yeah, I was happy with that match overall.
Yeah, I mean, you guys got a big. I would say a big turning point in that map was you guys got a big P3 break on the second rotation.
The second P3 we broke, yeah, that was huge.
Yeah, you guys chucked a bunch of nades over the building, killed a guy at a hill, and then got 3 more kills, and they went forward. And you guys, because the way P3 again, we talk about new spawns, right? On the old version of that map, P3 is a clusterfuck.
Yeah, that map.
On the new version of that map, P3 is a money hill, and when you get a team to go forward, then they spawn out on P3. You basically are like, okay, well, let's go pick up top server, top snow. Like, let's try and like control the middle of the map and like the P4 rotation and get back in the shit. But yeah, I agree. I think you guys played good. I know. I assume your goal is still a couple of maps. I think you guys haven't played yet in a real match. I think Skid Row, Hardpoint, I haven't seen you guys play. And there's one S&D map. I don't think you guys have played a Terminal
We haven't played
Search.
Terminal. We haven't played Terminal
Yeah.
Search. This and the Skid Row Hardpoint. We've played all the controls, and yeah, I'm pretty sure. If I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure that's everything. And the Skid Row Hardpoint was in the Vegas series. It just didn't make it there.
Yeah, let's where do we want to go next? Let's talk. Let's flip around a bit. We're gonna move back and forth. Let's talk about the 2 teams we mentioned in here. Let's talk about LAG because I actually think LAG is a very interesting team to me. They played one other match other than the one we discussed with you and them. They played Boston. I thought they showed very much in that series why I think they're definitely in the top 5, top 6 combo because the series started off with a pretty gritty invasion that LAG just broke. I think they really controlled P1 on most of that, and at the end they got a P1 break to close it out. Because I think Boston let themselves get pinched like pretty badly. They just didn't get like courier control or anything like that. Breach didn't want to search, which I would say for LAG is probably one of the game modes that I'm a little concerned about, and that's maybe what's going to limit their ceiling. We get to game 5s. But the rest of the respawns, they controlled against Boston. The Karachi control, I think was, if I remember, was pretty clean at them. And then I think they dominated Boston on a Skid Row hardpoint to close it out. I think they won by like 100. But I mean, I assume you agree. This LAG team right now, like, definitely looks like top 6 material going to this event, which could be huge for them at the end of the season. Like this points haul at the beginning of the season allows them to not be potentially fighting to lock in a spot rather than chasing the back of the pack, being like 9th or 10th seed.
Yeah, no, I mean, this LAG team's like it's cool to see this LAG team do pretty well. They had a lot of criticism when they obviously formed this team and this roster, and a lot of people had a lot of things to say, and I think people had a lot to say even like about their coach and their coaching staff. But it seems like this is like the LAG we've been asking for the last 2 years, where it's like, listen, you don't have they didn't have like the best players on paper coming into this, but like they also just never had a good culture. I feel like LAG's culture for a pretty long time has been pretty.
Oh, it's been fucking terrible.
Okay, so yeah.
Think about it, Chris. Year 1, they blew up their team mid-season, right? Like literally just hit the reset button. Year 2, they signed most of the old EG World War II team, and then they sucked for a majority of the year. They had I think Major 1 that year. They had like a decent Major 1 split. I think they beat you guys actually. Major 1 qualifier split.
In Cold War they did. Yeah.
Yeah. But then most of the rest of the year they were relevant. Then in Vanguard, what happened in Vanguard? Vanguard, they rando won an event, the event with Spart, but outside of that, they were terrible like every other weekend of that year, and they didn't make champs. They won an event and didn't make champs that year. And then last year they ran back the roster from the end of the season in Vanguard that didn't work, minus Austin plus Alec, got slammed at the first event, dropped 3 of their players, had some decent performances during the second major, but then never went anywhere. And then I know the team just like sucked the rest of the year because the culture was terrible. Like this is finally to your point. Look, there was legit criticism about I think how this roster formed. It happened very quickly. It was a non-transparent process. Teammates got snaked. Like it was just not handled, I think, well. And I don't really blame EOs for that. I blame LAG management for waiting until like a week before the game came out to tell VOs you got 24 hours to build a roster. But the thing that they have done since then is put their heads down and fucking grind, to your point.
And
like they have sat here and they're like, they have played the hardest, and you probably agree. I mean, that work is paying off now. There's so many bad teams in the league that, yeah, LAG doesn't have the talent that you guys have, the New York has, that OpTic has, whatever. But like, work they're putting in is going to enable them to make it to the weekend at Major One.
And Estriel's been playing pretty well too when it comes to talent. I
Yeah.
feel like he's been playing pretty good. So it's just like, yeah, it's nice to see this LAG team have like a way better culture and just be, the team that like we've kind of needed them to be, or they've needed themselves to be, like in the league sometimes. And so I hope they keep that up no matter like how their season continues to go. But I think a big reason why they're showing a lot more promise now is they were one of the teams that were grinding during the holiday break. They are one of the teams that even when they lost, I think the match or two to start the season, like they said, like we've been playing way better in practice. They didn't just like throw it up after two matches, and that's happened before. Like through I just feel like they have a lot more hope and promise around their like team and their camp right now, and it's just pretty cool to see. So like I think it's refreshing, I guess is the word, about this LIG team. So it's cool to see them doing pretty well. I hope they keep doing better and better. But I do think their culture change and their culture shift, it probably starts with the coaching. I don't know Vio's and all like their coaching staff like super well, but I mean it has to start somewhere, and I think it probably starts with them, and then it like leads into their players. So it's nice to see.
I would say I've talked to first. I want to tip Diamond Con. He's also played really well during the split. And
Yeah,
I think
he
got
has. Yeah,
screwed last year
he definitely
because
got
they didn't
screwed
want to
last
drop
year.
out, which is fair. So he had to kind of grind, and now he's getting a chance, and it's doing that. I've talked to Vios, I've talked to Eric Diamond Con, and I think, look, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I think LAG through peaks and valleys is probably still not going to make a change with this roster, depending on what it goes. I think this is a roster they're going to ride to the end of the year due to the sort of their position and where they're at right now as an organization. But I think that the team is making the best of it, and I think like they're not taking that as just getting a guaranteed salary, and it is what it is. And if we suck, we're just going to chalk it. Like they're actually trying to make something of the security of like, yo, like we have something to prove to everybody. We're going to work harder than them. Let's make champs. Let's be competitive. And the fruits of their labor are in a really good spot right now because a number of teams are just significantly worse than them. And I think they have an opportunity to really like close out this major one cycle as being the fifth or sixth best team.
And
that is a fantastic spot to be in.
also just have players that like have a lot to prove still too. Like if
Yeah.
they can't just afford to suck and just be like, oh, it's all good, like we'll get paid, because then they're not in the league next year. So
Yep.
they definitely have a little bit more on the line, even without it being said. So yeah.
They still have some stuff to work on.
Yeah.
Still have some stuff to work on. S&D, I've watched them play. Is I don't think they still got a lot of work there, and they've have only played 2 of the 5 S&D maps. But they look really good in respawn. They have trouble closing out some maps, but that can always swing. And their control looks solid compared to the rest of the pack because there's a bunch of bottom teams that we'll get to them. They can't win controls. So I like where LG's at, and they've got Minnesota and Miami coming up this weekend. So I think both games are winnable, and we can definitely see LAG finish this split online 4-3, get like the 5th or the 6th seed, and get a potentially or maybe a 4th seed if some crazy shit happens. Actually, I don't know if that's possible. 4-3, and they'll probably get the 5th seed. Have something going forward for the first major. Let's move on. I want to talk about a team though that we talked about earlier because you guys played them just to round out the conversation. That's still Las Vegas Legion. And man, this is one of those teams, Chris, the opposite of what we just talked about. LAG's been grinding. They've been working hard. They look solid on 3 game modes. This Vegas team does not. This Vegas team this weekend lost to you guys and had the opportunity to potentially 3-0 OpTic, right? They went up map 1 against OpTic, dominated them on a Skid Row Harbor. And we've seen what OpTic's looked on Skid Row. That first map was surprising. Like they broke OpTic on 2 like P2s on that map. Like, damn, Vegas came to play today. Then the S&D terminal happened. And, you probably agree with me. S&D terminal at this pro level can be, it can be very 50-50 sometimes, depending on how it goes.
It's a weird map.
They go up 2-0 in this series. You know what? I didn't have confidence that they were going to close this shit out because they have still yet to win. And then after this series, the same thing. They're 0-6. They played 6 series. They've lost 6 controls. They gave OpTic momentum. OpTic slammed them on a terminal hard point, and then the S&D invasion. I mean, OpTic was really laughing around 3 of that map, if you wonder how it went. So Vegas sitting here 1-5, 0-6 in control in the season, Chris. Like, my question to you with Vegas, like watching them play control, what do you think is their biggest issue in the game mode?
I'm not answering that, but I mean, they're just not playing the game mode fully correct, in my opinion. And then they're just obviously not getting like the little things to like go their way. I mean, there's definitely like still a shred of hope for them. I know it sounds crazy to say that because they are like putting themselves in winning positions to like close out these
Yeah.
series. But we've talked about it on this show a bunch of times. Freaking
Bad teams find a way to
control
lose.
control is just so important. Like it is so
Yeah.
important to like to figure out, and it is one of those game modes where you can close out these series 3-0s. Like if they can do that, or you can bring yourself back, and we've talked about it time and time again. So they need to probably find a new solution or to what would work for them best of just like how they can get these maps done. But yeah, no, I just think like that's probably, I mean, I'm sure obviously that is probably their focus in scrims now. Like it's pretty common, but yeah, no, it sucks because I feel like this team is like showed some signs of life and then like it just all like goes away. But at the same time, like even when you just lose that control, like you still should be able to close out in other ways too. And I just feel like, I don't know, it could be like a composure thing. Like I'm not too sure, but I feel like once things start going wrong for them, it like really just like steamrolls that way and like continues to snowball like that, like just like downhill. So like, whoa, I don't know. It's weird.
That was my concern when this roster got built. Like they were putting, and I love Dill, but they're putting Dill in a position where he's got to be the primary leader with like no backup on this team. It just felt like a mercenaries team, and not even like a veteran mercenaries team that could kind of figure out, kind of as a leftovers team where the leadership and the culture needs to be. I just felt like they were going to have issues like this, and then we've seen it happen, bro. I mean, they could have been 2-0. They could have been 2-0 to start the season, and they let Carolina, who is, I think, by far and away the worst team in the league, beat them on an S&D invasion that they should have closed out 5-3, 6-3. And then after that, they got, they lost to Miami. They got slammed by New York. And then they come back from the break, and they have a chance to beat OpTic, and they don't take care of it. And then they play you guys, and they have a stinky leg. I just don't think this team's got composure. I think they've started to even slip on the S&D front. I think the only the S&D terminal that they beat OpTic on is the best S&D map they played since like the Carolina series. Outside of that, when they played Miami S&D, I don't remember the S&D against Miami. I think Miami won. I think it was a lot of defense trading on terminal. New York kind of outplayed them on the S&D if I remember. And then obviously we know what happened last map against OpTic and then against you guys on Skid Row. That was S&D wasn't fucking close. Like I don't know, man. There's one of those teams that I think that might be toast already. I hate to say it.
I
I
think,
don't see how they're gonna regain.
yeah, I mean they have I mean they have to regain. Like I know like Attach isn't just gonna like chalk it up type of thing either,
Yeah.
but like I definitely
And
feel
he's been
like
their best player.
yeah, they just put themselves in a tough spot to start the year, so they're in one of those like catch up scenarios. But we'll have to kind of wait and see. But yeah, no, they need to figure it out and figure it out quick because if they don't, like the season can come to an end real quickly. So we'll have to kind of wait and see what they do. They have shown some sign of life. So I'm trying to like be a little bit optimistic for them, but it's gonna be a tough turnaround. Possible, but we'll see. They also, I mean, Purge is also brand new too, and right, so like he definitely. I hope for the culture side of things, how we talked about like LAG last year. I think their culture sucked, and players like Joe Deceives and stuff like like this, like the younger players. Like I feel like that hurts a younger player a lot because you enter the league, you're ready to be in the league, you're like excited, and then like your team just gives up around you. Like that could be like super shitty for a younger player to like be in a situation like that. I don't think Vegas is going to allow that to happen just with some of the pieces that are like on that team, but I hope it doesn't because like that could make or break a player like Purge in my opinion. So
I agree, and right now, unfortunately, I think he might potentially be on the chopping block on their roster. Let's move on and talk about a team that on the other's flip side, one team that might blow it up to a team that is looking pretty good. That's your defending CDL champion New York Subliners. Still have not lost in the league, and in fact, they've not lost in S&D. They are 7-0 in the game mode. They had a pretty solid weekend, a good 3-1 victory over Minnesota, as well as a 3-1 victory over Thieves. The two maps they lost to map one again. Map one terminal to Minnesota. Okay, I mean again, it's terminal. Like you play 1 minute bad of the 12 and you flip security spawns. So it could be GG's on the map. And then they lost an invasion control to Thieves, and Thieves actually played pretty good. And invasion control and actually won really nice offense on that. But outside of that, I don't think any of their maps were like super close. Yeah, it's like these pretty badly. I would say New York's respawn has been good, but I wouldn't say it's S plus tier. But their S&D has been incredible, Chris. I don't know if you've watched a lot of their search play, but like, what do you think makes this team so good in game mode?
I mean, their S&D right now, their ability to like make plays and just if they're ever in a hole, like just in general with their team, like their ability to make plays and like that their instinctual, like their 2v2s or 3v2s or 4v2s or 2v4s, like anything of the sort where like someone needs to go big for them. I feel like they have really good S&D instincts where like one of them will make a play and like it's very coordinated. I just remember even last year, like a few times that you got to watch players play S&D in a tournament, like not with their team, and just like listen to the
Yeah.
comms and listen to it. I think they have like really good individual minds for S&D, and when they are playing well and they are winning S&Ds, New York is obviously one of the best teams in the world. We saw that last year with their how good of a season they had. So
Yep.
yeah, I mean, I just think their ability to make like the proper play like when it's needed and like to trust each other to like make like that one off play is really big. Is really big, and they're just playing it really good right now. I mean, they're a world class team for a reason.
The S&E stat that's kind of crazy with their team. So historically,
Mhm.
like the best search teams that we've seen, like your team last year, for example, first blood win percentage was like lowish mid 50s. We're talking like 54%.
Yeah,
Right of the rounds you play, they're winning first blood, converting like at least 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10 of those. Right now, and by the way, first blood win percentage right now on average is actually up this year. We'll get to that probably later in the show. Um, New York has played 69 rounds of searches and gotten 43 first bloods. It was good for 62%, and they've only not closed out 5 of those rounds in 7 maps. That is incredible. They're getting first blood 6 out of 10 times. They only blown 5, 4, and 3s in 7 maps. Like
yeah.
this shows the level I know in Search are on. I know that Troy tweeted out they put a lot of work in the game mode. I know Dante talked to me and Tommy in December, and that was the game mode they worked the hardest. They've got a deep playbook of stuff to do. I think, as we saw last year with New York, when their S&D was good, it meant good results. When they were unable to execute S&D, it meant that they were very dependent on having some real good quality respawn maps to try and get through series. So I think that gives them some room while I think they're respawn right now. And I know you're not, I don't want to really comment on it. I think their respawn at times is a little inconsistent in this game. Um, and so I think there is some room to work on stuff, like especially when we've seen them play terminal or sub bases here. Not their best of maps, but I think that this team could come hot at Major One and definitely pick up where they left off last year.
Yeah, and again, just the way they
Yeah.
communicate in S&D, even last year, like the way they get their first bloods and stuff is very, very planned out and just very just thought out. And like again, like you can clearly tell
Yeah.
that their playbook is like deep, like that, like with what Dante was saying to you, like in the earlier the year, you're saying like Sid was saying it, but like yeah, like they
Yeah.
have very good plays that like I don't know. I think New York just has a very good team culture, and like they obviously try and make the best of it, and they do a very good job doing it. So
Let's also real quickly guess Dante because I know that he had issues in the beginning of the split, and then I think he accidentally, although I put accidentally in quotes because I think he didn't know, but Tommy was in the streams a lot. I mean, even our team speak like there's a very bold channel that says streams are live. You went in there, talked about some hand issues he had. Has seemed to put in work in that because he came out and was probably the best
he's
player
been
this
playing really
weekend.
well. Yeah.
Yeah, no, he had an incredible weekend individually, and like it's looking like I love P Dog. He's my guy. But it's looking like Dante's coming in and having a big impact for them. So looking like so far that change is good, but obviously with all top 4 teams, got to see how they stack up against the other top 4 teams, and they will be playing Toronto to kick
Is
off the
that this?
weekend
That's
this
this
weekend.
weekend. Okay.
Yeah, so that'll be a really fun one, New York and Toronto. Let's actually pivot and start talking about those boys, the Toronto boys. When we last saw them before the break, they had a very unfortunate series against Boston. I would say unfortunate because Envoy had probably one of his worst series. As a pro, shit happens. And then for some reason, people just kept cooking Envoy over the break. They came back and played Asim's team like their first scrim back, and like they got slammed because obviously Asim's team was grinding the entire week, like FC Black, or the entire like 2 weeks during the break, they were grinding. And people were like, "Is Envoy washed now? Like, does this guy suck?" And then he was probably their best player in the Seattle series. So like, I'll give you some platform here to tee off on the community being absolutely, completely, and utterly wrong
I mean,
about
bro,
Envoy
I'm not even.
overreacting in one
I'm.
series.
I'm not even gonna waste my breath on that. Like, I mean, dude,
I like that.
but if people actually thought Envoy wasn't good anymore, it's just. I mean, those people don't actually watch COD.
All right. Since you don't really want to talk about it because those people are morons, in the same way that we talked about New York being really good in the game mode, I want to give Toronto their flowers. They look like one of the best hardpoint teams in the game, and they've been winning these hardpoints by good margins. And they're playing like They played Carolina's probably the worst team they played, but they played like LAG, Boston, Seattle, and Thieves. So they played like 4 of like the mid pack teams so far, but they've dominated the respawns. They're like 10-2 respawn, 6-1 in hardpoint. Like, um, why do you think from your POV again? I'm just sure there's some stuff you want to tip. Like those guys have been
I
really
mean,
dominant in hardpoint, winning by an average of 80 points.
they're a very fast team, right? Like I think Scrap, the pace that he plays is really good. I think he's a really good player. And I think with Envoy now and then Kleenex, and then obviously like you have Jamie or Insight playing like more of like the main AR role. It's just like I think they have a very fundamentally sound team. I think they've always played really correct Call of Duty. Like they're a very smart team. Their philosophy on the map is always really good. And then they have people that can back it up with gunfights, right? Like they're just always going to be a pretty good hardpoint team most of the time with the team that they've built and the speed that they play. So I feel like they're just going to usually be one of those like just top 4 teams that are really good at respawn, and it doesn't surprise me that they're good at it. Like I just think the players that they have right now that like it fit that system. I also do think Envoy was a good fit for the like this team as well to like help their respawns, because that was like the one thing they were struggling with a little bit last year is some of the times the slaying power against the top like some of the better teams. Granted, they made the finals of champs and they still played really well, but I think Envoy is someone who is a really smart player, but he's also still
Agreed.
talented, right? And so I think the gunfights that he wins and the game that he plays is going to be a game that's very impactful, and I think that shows. So I mean, they're just a good team overall.
Yeah, I think Toronto, I like what Charlie brought to the team last year, but I think the Envoy move made a lot of sense. And look, like, it's the first split, bro. Like some people are gonna have some bad series. I think it picked off where they left off. I mean, they look like we didn't even talk about control yet. Like they look really solid in that game mode too. And that was probably their best game mode last year. The only thing on Toronto I will say is they have lost a number of searches this season.
Mhm.
They played 5 and they're 2-3 in the game mode. So monitoring that, the overlying stats in their S&D aren't terrible. There isn't anything when I look at it that's like really standing out that I think that they've blown a couple of 4v3s. It's early. People are still learning the maps, like shit like that. So I want to see stuff develops before Major One before I make a claim on like here's what kind of sucks about their search. But I will say, if they can't clean that up, that could be a potential weakness going into, the series against New York we just talked about, and Major One, and that might be a reason why they don't get like, first, second, or third is because they can't close that game 5, or game 2, but they're in a good spot. Move's
Yeah,
looking good.
looking good.
I know we got to move on because we only got like 40 minutes left. Um, let's round out the top 4 teams. Let's talk about OpTic Texas. They played one series this week, and it was an interesting one. We talked about when we were talking about with Vegas. I mean, OpTic went down 0-2, but I will say at no point during them going down 0-2 did I have any doubt that they were going to win map 3 and then take the momentum in this series, and they did, and they closed out emphatically with game 5. When do you think that it was just the first series back? The intensity wasn't there. They were making many mistakes. You think it's just a case of like just a bad day, and they just had to grind through a series, or do you think this is kind of a concern you have with their team about starting slow?
I mean, yeah, I watched that series too, and I was never really like convinced that they were gonna lose. To be honest, it was one of those where it's like I just feel like they needed to wake up a little bit. I know they took some time off too, so they were like a little bit behind, where they were trying to play a little bit of catch up. Where we're compared to, I think Vegas probably played a little bit like more than them too off the break with the new spawns. I feel like that's fair to say. I'm pretty sure that's correct, but regardless,
Yeah, I think Vegas got
yeah, I think they like they were a little bit more ahead, so like it could just be something like where they came out flat and like they were still like getting better and better by each day. But yeah, no, I wasn't really too concerned. I mean, again, Vegas can still just because just Vegas doesn't look very good right now, and like some of the bottom 4 teams don't look great, but like they can still win a hard point, and then Terminal S&D can go either way sometimes too, the way it plays. So I don't know. I think like their slaying power and like their team in general, like I didn't think Vegas was gonna do that for the full best of 5 and beat them personally. So I wouldn't be super concerned. I think like again like that longer break gave them some time to like obviously play a little bit of catch up, and I think that's kind of just what they're doing. So they're chilling now. I think that was really good for them low key if it probably going down like that, and then like being woken up, being like, yo, let's like come on, like lock it in. They showed some ice too, so not a bad thing. A win is a win right there. It's nothing to like overthink.
I agree because I think again to reiterate, I was just like, bro, they're gonna high rise controls in map 3. I'm like, that's a W. I'm sorry, like I don't think Vegas won that.
Yeah,
and I would say for OpTic, because I think there's been a lot of talk about, Bruce has been really doing a lot of hill soaking and playing well, which I tip. They've had some good series from AG, and still trying to figure out how he's going to kind of play. But we expected that because of AG's play style. Like there's just a lot of shit they need to figure out. But Ken's probably been their best, most consistent player, which is an absolute great sign if you're an OpTic fan, because when the other guys are too good to not figure it out. And they would be really good. And Shafi in my chat said that Kenny said their heat wasn't working in the office. He could not win a gunfight the first few maps. I would say the weather in Dallas did get kind of bad this weekend, so I could kind of tip that. But cold hands, I mean, you played, Chris. Like cold hands is definitely
cold hands sucks. Yeah, no, that's not fun. So, yeah, no.
And also tips to what I said about Seattle Surge. But anyway, that aside, I listen. I agree. Like, I want to see what OpTic can do this weekend because they still got to play Miami and obviously you guys.
Yep.
So there is still, especially the Miami series, because Miami's coming off the O2, and we'll talk about them next, with a lot to prove. I think those are 2 step-up games from Vegas that OpTic needs to kind of match the moment. But if you're an OpTic fan, you like where the respawn is at. They've had some tricky S&E losses, but most of them were like earlier on the split. So I think they've got a decent handle on that game mode. Just many things for them to work on and go forward. But they're going to be a top seed and a contender for Major 1. But let's talk about Miami. This was a team to watch going in this week because they got off to such a hot start. And I do think that, no disrespect to them, they don't have control of the schedule necessarily, but they played Carolina, Vegas, and Minnesota to start the season, right? And unfortunately, those 3 are like 3 or bottom 4 teams. And Miami took care of good business against those squads, only dropping 2 maps across 3 series. So going to break, we're like, oh, well, this Miami team looks really good. We're like, we need to see a little bit more from them against some better teams. They played Seattle and Boston this weekend. The Seattle series was a banger, probably best series of the weekend. A couple of the maps were, but I don't think any of the maps were like crazy close. I don't really control evasion going to game 5 like happens every map. But no, I think none of the hard points were super close. The only close map, I think the Skid Row S&D was like a 6-4. I think it ended, but I don't think it was like, Actually,
well, Miami,
no, that map was
Miami trolled. Miami went up close on that map, and then they had the RC's 2v1 was the craziest 2v1 ever because Miami literally saw Alec in the middle of playground with no cover and just decided like, hey, I'm just gonna keep planting the bomb, and then Alec just shot him off the bomb and then killed the second guy. Literally, if he just gets off the bomb and they just team chow Alec in the middle of the open with no cover, like honestly, they probably win that map because I think at that time it would have made them go up 3-0, 4-0 or something. Like it would have been. It was definitely a swing round where like Seattle needed that clutch, and then they got that clutch, and then the momentum kind of like swung back into the favor of Surge. So that was a crazy series. But I honestly thought Miami was going to win that the way they were starting off that clutch and everything, and then that happened. I was like, what the hell? Like I don't know if that was a miscommunication or something, but that was definitely a weird play.
There was some other stuff that happened in that map. I want to hold off on talking about when we get to Seattle. But after that, I was like, okay, well, so it's a banger game 5. I think them and Seattle are going to kind of really battle on these series throughout the year. We want to see what happens against Boston. Miami pull up in the Boston series, and they have a pretty good map 1, where I think they led most of the time. They lost a tough round 11 in S&D Terminal, which is like trained defenses. The control high rise was another absolute defensive banger, and by banger I mean a snooze, resident sleeper. And then Boston really turned up on the invasion hardpoint, especially Snoopy was everything on that map. And so Miami unfortunately went, after starting off 3-0, went 0-2 this week. Do you think it was just like a bad week for them, Chris, or do you think they were always sort of a mid-pack team and they just hadn't played better teams until now?
I mean, I don't think poorly of Miami, but I don't think they're like a top 4 dominant team right now either. Like I think I think they're still getting better. I think they have a great culture, and I think they are a good team where like you don't play Miami and think like, hey, like like we should like you have to make sure you tee up versus them and everything. So like they're a good team. I just think I also think very similar right now of like Seattle and Boston, where it's like I feel like if Boston and Seattle play good on the day, they are a team that could very easily beat you. But at the same time, like they also have like their inconsistencies. I feel like that's kind of like a little bit how Miami goes. Like Miami is a good team. They have a lot of potential. They have a higher ceiling, but like sometimes they can have mishaps and stuff where like they also can find themselves losing matches. But it's not like they lost to, you know, again, like some of the teams that are super struggling right now. So I just feel like they fell short against some teams like probably around their level right now that I would say is, you know, it's like a fair, you know, fair loss. It's not the end of the world, but it's definitely something that they want to make sure they get better from and just improve from there.
Yeah, I think we talked about in the beginning of the show, because I agree with you. I think Seattle, I'll get to them in a second, are probably like 5th or 6th best. But who is that other potential top 6 team? It's some combination of Miami, Boston, and LAG.
They're all fighting for the spot right now. Yeah.
Yeah, and I thought before the break, maybe Miami was kind of the clear front runner in that. Now, after this week, I'm not so sure. I think it's a little bit murkier, but those teams are theoretically better than the bottom 4 teams. So, yeah, a little bit more work for for Miami to kind of prove. I know like players like Metals went from being really, really good against, before the break to not having the best of weekends. They don't have the easiest of runs in this weekend. They had 2 matches, one against LAG, one against OpTic, and one against LAG. So I do think, unfortunately, there's a world where they kind of continue to slide and finish 3 and 4. But I could also see them splitting this and being 4 and 3 going in the major and giving us like legit still zero clarity on if they're 6th or 8th best team. But again, I'm still peeping this Miami team. I'm rooting for them, bro.
Yeah, no.
Love Vickle. He's my guy. Even though he be roasting me about my Real Madrid takes, it's all good. He's a delusional Real Madrid fan. I still want to see these guys succeed. So hoping they can work on some of the stuff that got exposed this weekend. But let's talk about the team they played in that first series. And we got to talk about what happened in that last map, Chris. I know you love talking about drama. It's a Seattle Surge. And more GA drama going on. Outside that Miami series we just talked about, they did play a series against Toronto to start the week, and it didn't go well. It did not go well. I would say that legitimately none of the maps were very close. They got slammed the first 2 maps, and then call me if you heard it before. Another Resident Sleeper defensive control invasion battle. But going to what happened last map against Seattle, there was already going into the Toronto series. Actually, I think I'm trying to remember. It did happen in the Miami series. There was going into Toronto series. This is over the break.
Mm-hmm.
Some clips surfaced of Abuza using single tap sprint against your team in a league match, which is currently a G8 setting for the pros. And people discussed on the call, and I know when in the G8 chat, that people seem to feel strongly that he was using it. I don't know if it sounded like some punishment was levied from that. We've been joking red card offense. And unfortunately, there's more controversy this week because in the Miami series, last map against Miami Heretics, you can only throw 1 smoke per round in S&D. That's the GA setting. And in a round of the search, it seems like both Alec and Kyler, aka Hook, both threw a smoke during this round. But talking to some players, including Scrap, they felt like this one was a little bit more of a yellow card situation because potentially maybe, and if you pull up the clip we discussed, Hook might have thought he had a stun and not a smoke, or didn't know that Alec had thrown a smoke. It wasn't like as much of a blatant situation. So I'm curious your thoughts on whether this is sort of an excuse GA break.
I mean, listen, I'm gonna say 2 things. First of all, I don't know if the single tap thing like ever got. I didn't really like. Again, I don't really care.
Yeah.
But I'll say if you choose to use single tap and break that GA, that might be the worst GA that you can break out of them all. I know it's not at like game breaking and snaking. Trust me, snaking is annoying as shit. Yeah. I know, but like at least with snaking, like you pop up one and done. Like you definitely can choose to do it. We've seen that ever since we've done that GA. People have stopped doing it, but like. In the game, in the moment, like someone might do it. Like I think, who was it? Fucking someone on New York. I forget already. But like choosing to go into your settings and put on single tap when no one can like technically prove that is incredibly fucking weird. So I don't know if he did it, and I didn't like go into it. But choosing to break a GA like that, like might almost be like one of the worst offenses from. In my opinion, just because like I think that's the weirdest shit ever. Like you're actually choosing to go into your settings and like change your settings and play on something that like
Yeah.
is not allowed, and like no one can prove it to you without like you getting caught. Like I find that like almost like more weird than most of the GAs that you can break, including the one that I'm about to talk about. Let me pull this up.
But let's add more context too. So in
Yeah.
Challenger, single tap is not GA'd. And I can understand if you're
No.
playing on your normal account and you're playing, say, Warzone, right? You might want to turn on single tap to give you advantage in Warzone. But the pros play on a different account for competitive matches. You have to knowingly go on that account and turn on single tap. You're not gonna fire up fucking Warzone.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
so
like,
you can't accidentally turn that on. You know what I'm saying?
no,
There are
you
times where settings
can't.
reset in this game or some bullshit happens. But
Settings
like
don't reset the single tap.
you would know you. That's what I'm saying. But you would also true, and you would also know instantly if you have it on. It is very noticeable if you have it on. But this is the smoke incident. So you're going to see here. This is the 4th round of this map. And you're going to see that Alec is going to throw a smoke at the beginning of the round, and then you're going to see them cut to Hook, who makes the tunnel play. And he, again, it's unclear, and I'm curious your thoughts, Chris, if like he thought he was banking a stun, or like maybe he just kind of blacked out and like threw the second smoke on accident.
I mean, dude, this is something where this could very have easily just been a miscommunication, like a yellow card type thing, or like or he thought he had a stun, like the one smoke's up there. Like this is something again where I don't find this as like intentional as something like using single tap can be. Like, so yeah, you have the smoke here and you have the smoke here. Like, again, he could have thought he had a stun, maybe he had a smoke. Like, it could have been a miscommunication, whatever it was. It's like, I feel like that's way more innocent of like something that doesn't need to be like super looked into unless they were using it for the entire map. If they were like running strats with 2 smokes for the entire map, it's a little bit different. Here, I don't think it is. So, and honestly, I didn't even realize that they used 2 smokes. Again, this is like, I don't really care about most of this stuff, but yeah, no. The whole single tap thing to me is extremely weird if that was actually used. But I also just don't follow it as sharply as like some people really care about their GAs type thing. So yeah, I don't know. I think this one's like more of a yellow card. There's could be so many explanations, and if it was only for 1 round and they weren't running double smoke strats where like you can clearly see like they were intentionally planning to do something with it.
Yeah,
it's much different. If they were intentionally planning on throwing 2 smokes every round, like yeah, they should probably lose a lot of scrims and more. But I think the same thing with the single tap. Again, if you choose to go into your settings and change that and then play on that and then try and get away with it, I think that is incredibly weird. I don't know if that was ever confirmed, so I'm not trying to like, go any farther than that with this because it's just something that I'm not fully, educated on. But yeah, if that was the case, I find that almost just as bad, if not worse than the snaking shit.
Yeah, so I agree with you on single tap, and again, it seemed like some punishment was levied to Seattle over the break due to that issue. As far as this smoke situation, we were doing a watch party on Sunday with Sir Scrap, and he's been pretty.
Hold up, they were punished, quote unquote, like there was a punishment for their single tap. So was it confirmed that he was using it?
I don't know. I'm not in the rep chat, but I think.
I mean, I just feel like if you accept the punishment for using single tap, then clearly like that's like almost saying like, hey, like we used it, right? No.
I mean, what I had heard is that I don't think that Seattle came out and like apologized and said we were using like the Booze was using it. We're sorry. So
but they just accepted not having scrims. That makes no sense.
Yeah, this is the problem with this whole fucking GA process. Is again, it's super opaque. We only hear about it because people answer questions in chat if the players are streaming like BPL or crowd comes in a watch party and starts talking about it. Like I'm not in the chat. You're not in the chat. Like Zuma's, who apparently is GA commissioner these days, is not in the chat.
I mean,
so don't know. I like, I'm saying I don't know like what the actual punishments are. And this also gets complex because if they were punished for the single tap thing, there's punishment for the smoke thing. Well, that's a second offense for them. And I don't know what that even means.
The smoke thing is a much different situation. Yeah. And my the only reason why I'm confused is if you were to accuse me of using single tap and I'm going to lose scrims over it, but I wasn't using it, I'm not accepting that punishment because I wasn't fucking doing it. Like what? Like that makes no, I'm so confused right now. Like if someone were to accuse you of doing something and your team is taking like, your team is taking a hit because of it, like, I feel like it's very simple. Like, hey, no, I wasn't. That's bullshit. Or hey, I feel like if you don't say anything, it's like you're just accepting that, which means you were. Like, I'm so like I feel like this shouldn't be this confusing.
It is a weird situation because no one is publicly said that either Seattle confirmed they were using it, and Seattle, on the flip side, hasn't made any public case that, like,
Wait,
you know what I'm saying?
someone in
That
the
they
chat said
weren't.
no
That
one's gonna believe you if you deny. No, you can't prove. This is my thing. This is why I think the single tap shit is really fucking weird, because you cannot prove. Like, you can technically try and prove single tap with, like, you know, watching someone's gameplay,
I
but at
can't
the
like
end,
burger walk and shit.
yeah, you can't burger walk. I know, but you can though too. You just don't tap it once,
Yeah, yeah.
and you can
Yeah,
walk.
it's
So again,
yeah.
like, you don't it like. I feel like in order to prove a single tap GA, you need to see it with your own eyes. Like, hey, single tap to sprint is on, or to run is on, whatever you like, whatever it is. And if it's not, like, again, I feel like if I was being accused of having that on, and I didn't have that setting on ever, I would just say, like, go fuck yourself. What? Like, that's why I feel like this is, like, I feel like I'm missing something here. But regardless, whatever the punishment is, it should be way worse than fucking warm-ups if that is the case. Because again, if you're choosing to use that fucking setting, you're a weirdo. Period.
Again, this is my entire issue with the GA process. I know we need to move on. We have 20 minutes. We're trying
I know
to
we've
get
talked,
through the
man.
shows.
You know my
But
issues
again,
with it too.
because of the way the GA process works, it's a bunch of players in a group chat, and there's no official process for these things. There's no public transparency. It's a very opaque process, and it creates a lot of issues. It creates a lot of bias, and like this whole process, even if we're trying to debate the validity of it, we're not just right or wrong. It's just always gonna be murky. But go ahead.
One last thing. In Cold War, wasn't ATS turned off in CDL mode? Like, you just couldn't even use ATS, I'm pretty sure. Like, how is that not a thing in 2024? Bro.
I don't know what to tell you.
Whatever. Sorry.
There's a lot. Listen, there's a lot of features in COD that I'm confused why streamer mode isn't a thing that you can just turn on for Warzone, and you gotta whatever. There's a lot of shit. But anyway, we got 4 teams to talk about. We're gonna bang through most of these. I'm gonna, you know what, for the sake of this, like, I don't think we're really gonna talk much about Carolina. They play with a sub. I thought Thieves played well, so we'll give him his flowers. But now is obviously a situation. Let's talk. What's gonna be most interesting? Let's talk about LA Thieves. Because I think LA Thieves, I don't know if you agree with me. Do you think LA Thieves is the most disappointing team so far this season, as far as where I thought they'd be and where they are right now?
Yes.
That might be a title. Because once again, they had another week where they're not getting like 3-0'd in the way that Carolina is, where Carolina's won 3 maps and all of those were in one series, in which series they won against Vegas. LA Thieves are playing these series for the most part where they're taking like an S&D or control, but all the other maps are not close. In particular, the hard points. They are potentially the worst slaying team in a hard point, which is crazy considering the players they have on their squad. Players that were, you know, making it deep to champs, players that were in finals last year. They're 1-8 in the game mode. The only map win they have is on an invasion. Like, what do you think it's just this team like is playing fundamentally hardpoint the wrong way? Do you think they just literally are just getting gunned because they're bottom 4? All their players are low in KD. Their highest overall KD or game mode player is like Afro's got like a 0.92. That's how bad they've been getting gunned.
No, they're getting shit on, but I don't know. Like, I'm not gonna, you know, deep dive onto their team because of plenty of reasons, but this team is not as bad as what the world is seeing. Like, it's very weird. Like, even in scrims, like, we play well against everybody in scrims, but like, I just don't feel like this LA Thieves team is as bad as they are on a day-to-day basis when it comes to just scrimming. At least from my perspective, I don't think they're a top 4 team, but like, I'm very surprised they're like, I feel like they're just like super underperforming in matches. I don't know what's causing that. I don't know if that's true. Like, you know, I'm sure if there's someone that would know way more, it would be like Cap and like their coaching staff and stuff and the players. But like, I don't think this team should be playing this poorly with like just how I've watched them play in scrims and like just my experience with them. But like, yeah, like, I don't know. From my perspective, it looks like they're just not getting anything fucking done in match day. And Asim just told me to look at my texts. What am I looking at?
I don't know. While you're checking your ASIM text, like, it's very bizarre to me because I had heard
it wasn't,
you know, throughout the pre major 1 cycle, like, in, you know, kind of the run up in November, like, oh, you guys are actually playing pretty good in scrims, like, solid team, seem to be like progressing well as a squad. And then, you know, they played that Seattle series and the maps were decently close. and then you guys played them, and the maps were decently close, and it's like, okay, it was unlucky 0-2 start. But then, they beat Boston, but then they lose to LAG and go into break. You're like, eh. And then since then, they've just been this week was just as stinky. Like they
I
came
mean,
back,
they
an
lost Toronto
opportunity
and
to
New
build on a
York too, though.
platform.
Those are two really good ass teams right now too. So, but like, I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just weird. I feel like this team is not as bad
They've also
as
lost to LAG in Seattle, so it's like that's the thing is like, you know what I mean? They haven't
yeah,
played at Carolina or Minnesota. They're gonna play Carolina tomorrow at the
yeah.
stage. I think they'll beat them, but like,
I want to see
you
them
know what I
play
mean?
those teams. I want to see them play those like a team like that, and then I just want to see them like try. Like I'm not counting this team out yet. I saw someone on Twitter a day or two ago say like this is one of the worst teams in the league type thing. I don't think they're there. I really don't. Like I know that's crazy to say considering those results and stuff, but I feel like this team's just not getting it done on match day right now, and I feel like they have a lot more in the tank to prove. There's not. Now, does that excuse run on for forever? Absolutely not. But
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know.
That's my issue with them is like, yeah, you got in retrospect a tricky-ish schedule, but like this team should be good enough to win a
Yes.
couple of these 50-50 matches. They should not be 1-5. They should not be getting top 8 or top 12, which is likely what they're gonna finish. And I think unfortunately for Thieves is I think they really should take advantage of making roster changes after major one unless they make some crazy run here
Yeah.
because I just
Unless they
I just
flip it around.
yeah. 'Cause I
Yeah.
just think that this I mean, look, you wanna give it some time, but I mean, bro,
It depends on what the roster change and who it's for. No, I mean, I'm a believer of
they're
giving
a
it some time, but I'm
destination.
also a believer of like making sure you have
Yeah.
to get, you have to get shit going. And so is Cap.
They're
Cap's a big believer in that
yeah.
too. So
Oh, I know. They're a destination, and that's why I think, when teams like Minnesota and Carolina and other kind of biggest bomb squads are gonna try and make a change during this major one, like, Thieves always offer a consistent home. They offer a little bit of sometimes a higher-ish sort of pay ceiling, but also I think the security of if you go to Thieves, let's say you're like Asim's team or people on Fellows team. I know Cruzy Cod's team just won the cup this weekend. They're pretty solid. You talk like a player like Lunar's, Donnie's team. Like you talk to those players, and you look at the Thieves, and you go there and play well. Like you can lock down a spot there for next year. You go to Vegas or Carolina, you can play decent, but they're going to squad wipe, not pick up any options, and you're just gonna have to hope and pray over the offseason. So
yeah,
like, that's the thing for Thieves is like if they go out, they get top 8 this major one, and there's a player or 2 they like, I'm saying? The coaching staff,
yeah.
Novus Vita, who's their GM, they like, do you pull the trigger on it or you give this team more time? I would say probably they'll be aggressive. You
They-
can't if they go to split and get 20 CDL points and they're in the like, the worst thing that could happen to Steve's team, Chris, they don't make champs. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, yeah. This
Yeah.
team's spending enough money that they should be making champs still. Like I know,
Yeah,
like they
so
obviously, had their whole breakup at the end of the year and stuff, and I'm sure budgeting was lower, but like they still formed a good enough team where they're still expecting to be in champs. So, and answered that coolly said that this team's all about development. Word to their Vanguard champs team. That is a faded take because their entire Cold War season was all about roster changes and stuff, and their champs team
yeah.
was a much different like thing of development and a lot of other stuff that went into that. Like I feel like LA Thieves is notoriously aggressive when it comes to roster changes and stuff. And like and like even Cap has like publicly said like making rosters work most of the time doesn't like after times. So it's just like
Yeah, they had
they
some
went 0-5 and they didn't pull the plug for not because of development. Like that's my like there is again with roster changes even with this LA Thieves team like yes, you in theory can make a roster change, but you're also not just gonna make some fucking wild ass roster change for no reason. Like you have to make sure it's
yeah.
like with that 0-5 team, like who are you gonna drop on that 0-5 team? Envoy, Octane, Kenny, or Draza? Who are you gonna get
Yeah.
that's better than Octane at that point? Yeah, like there was no one to also make a change at the time. So that's also
Yeah, I think this
that's not
team
as fair of a take as you can make it out to be. But yeah.
This team, I look at it, it's like Dan obviously had a great year last year, has really did not play well this weekend. And outside of like one series before the Christmas break, has been pretty up and down. I think Cammy, unfortunately, is just not getting the levels expected. I think he's potentially chopping Brock. I don't know what their patience is with Joe Deceives. I like some things I see from Joe, but just same way we talk about with Snoopy, like he makes a lot of bonehead decisions on the map. It's just a question of like, you're just going to develop him or are you going to cut loose? And I think unfortunately Afro's been the same player we've seen the last few years. Like, yeah, sometimes he gets going, but sometimes he's just taking ego chows and he's going and dropping a point 0.8 and not giving you this thing you want. So I'm curious, like what Thieves want to do about the consistency there. But let's move on because I want to get to community questions as well. We're not going to talk about Carolina. Let's talk about Minnesota and Boston.
Let's do it.
Both teams went 1-1 this week. Which 1-1 impressed you more? Minnesota being losing New York and beating Carolina with a sub, or Boston losing 3-1 LAG but beating Miami 3-1?
Well, I mean that's
I think
definitely
it's an obvious answer.
yeah, the Boston one. I
Yeah.
mean beating
Yeah.
Carolina with the sub. Although I'm pretty sure TJ played pretty good if I remember.
Yeah, TJ did play pretty good, especially last
the
round.
team has been struggling a little bit, and then you pull in a sub out of nowhere with like very limited practice. Like they better beat them. Kind of that was a gimme. Like you have to win that series just because of the fact of how that was and like the spot that Minnesota's been in. So like they really needed to win that. But yeah, no, I think they lost LAG. LAG's been putting in the work, but then they 3-1 Miami, right? So again, Boston's on that like flip flop of like, hey, like when we're playing well, here we are. When we're not playing well, we're just struggling a little bit. So they just got to find like the consistency in between there. So I think that's definitely the more impressive or the better week, but we still have a lot to work with from both teams.
I think where I assess both teams for Boston, I think it seems like they're starting to make some process. I know they had a tough game 5 loss against your team first week, and then sort of after that they really struggled, but they got a nice victory against Toronto before the break. I think they battled in that LAG series, but kind of faltered after the S&E they won. In the Miami series, I think especially they got a really good series from Snoop, and I think like for them to be a really good team, it's really on the development. We say this about Boston a million times, on development of sub players, especially for them now with Snoopy, because you know what Preston and Austin are going to give you like ceiling wise and floor wise. And Capsule still they're a wild card, but Snoopy at his best. You saw in that last map against Miami, like flashes of what we see from like a BZ and Jotzi as far as movement, takeover, gunny. Like he has that package, but he also has a package when I watch him play S&D and he's just getting blooded because he's over challenged too much. He's trying to watch 2 lanes unnecessarily. Um, and then on the Minnesota side, I want to tip Linz. I don't know how you felt about Linz, but I think Linz
He played well.
even though his team's mid, like I think Linz is coming in and having a really good rookie season so far.
Yeah, he's been doing his thing.
Unfortunately, I think everybody else in his team has been disappointing, especially Big Wake this year. That's been my number one most disappointing player so far. He's on a overall, and I know overall KD, is whatever 0.86, which is, I mean, we've been seeing Big Wake put up 1.1s, so that's a big downswing for him. But I know he's tweeted out that he thinks he sucks right now. So hopefully he can figure it out because they will go nowhere, Minnesota ROKKR, if Wake is not a Wake that we know in the past.
Yeah, we've talked about it. I mean, he's got a lot of weight on his shoulders when it comes to this team because of the way this team is formed. He is there to be good. Like he is there like and just like be an explosive, a little bit faster paced than Lamar AR player that needs to do his thing when he plays the game. And like if he doesn't, his team's going to struggle, plain and simple. And it sucks that that's the reality of the scenario, like the situation, but it is. So like, I think he'll probably focus on his game and work on it. I have faith that like he can definitely turn it around. I do think he's a talented player. So we just have to wait and see. But yeah, no, he just has a lot. He's got a lot of weight on his shoulders when it comes to that. So he's definitely got to try and turn it around as quick as possible. Not just like the KD, but just like kind of everything. It's not always about that number, but that number is low for him specifically.
Yeah, I don't think he's someone they're going to drop after a major one. I think they're going to.
Yeah, I don't think we're there. No, yeah, but
Minnesota is a roster I could see making a change or two to
might.
try and improve some stuff. Like, because yeah, but we'll talk about that more in the next episode. We have 3 community questions. We got 8 minutes, so I want to try and move to those again. Don't want to talk about Carolina because I think they had a boring week. But let's start off. These were all from Twitter. First from Maduke on Twitter. Do you think we're going to see a full / near full roster swap similar to with LAG and LAG Academy last season before or after Major 1, Chris? What do you think?
No. A full like a 3-man at least?
3 or 4-man, yeah.
I don't think so, no. I mean no. I mean the only reason why I think that happened with LAG is because they had an academy team and they were doing well. Like I don't think we're gonna see that again. I mean I'm trying to think like the only other way you would do that is like what? Donnie or Asim's team and challengers.
They just go to
and you just go to them and like they do really well and you're like, yo, you guys are in and you guys are out and like that's it. I maybe, but like, nah, I don't think so. I think that'd be crazy. Because I just don't think any organization is going to go that far to go through all that to do that, to be honest with you. Maybe they do, but 3 or 4 is just a lot. That's a very big change. It's an entire team change.
If one of these top challengers rosters was like with LG Academy last year, where they were signing the org, and it's just like, well, like we see these guys play every day and they're disgusting. And our current team, I mean, LG last year, let's be honest, the LG team that played at the beginning of the season was going to get 150 points in a hard point.
Oh, they were horrific.
They were so bad. So like that was like there was like that. We thought they shouldn't have ran that roster back to begin with, so they clearly realized that. I think that was a special situation. I think at best you're going to see maybe like a sub duo or like a 2-player from one of these teams end up on a CDL roster together to keep some of that chem.
Yeah.
But I don't think that we're getting a 3 or 4. I'd be mind blown if that happens.
That's just crazy. I mean, there are like basically pro teams in the challengers world right now. Again, the teams that I named, they're a bunch of pros on a team.
We didn't even talk about Bant, Tixie, Nasty, and them.
There's quite a few of them. So like, you never know. Like, I don't want to fully count it out, but I'd be really surprised just because it's not the same situation as that LAG with last season. Not even close.
I agree. So,
we can move on though.
Let's move on from Jack Walker. As these top 4 teams are so evenly matched on paper, what do you think is the main difference they can make to ensure they pull clear as a number 1 team? I guess I'll rephrase this question to you, Chris, because I think it's better. Like, you guys know that you have some good competition for your team. Like, knowing that it's like fine margins, do you think it's like a prep thing? What do you think you guys are going to do to just get over what you think is some even skill across those teams?
I mean, it's just like an everything thing. Like when it comes to when you play a team, like like when like 2 Titan teams play each other, a lot of it's performing on a day because COD is a day-to-day thing when you have to wake up and at the end of the day, when you play someone that's playing as fundamentally correct as you, most of the time, some certain teams like have like their ups and downs with stuff. Like you have to win the gunfights, like you have to come out and slay for the most part. It's very hard to like win without that. But not even that, just like the little things, dude. Like prep searches, like the searches are a really big game changing thing too. Like when you get to those game 5s, can you close those out against the bigger and better teams? The same thing with the game 2s. I think control is a swing game mode that like hurt us last year a lot. And like, that's also something that like we've been focusing on is making sure that we can win those controls, because if you go up 2-0 against a team like OpTic, you got to close it out, right? It's just like we were just talking about Vegas. If you go down 0-2, bring yourself back in, and then you get to that map 4, maybe that map 4 is your pick, and then you're back in the series, right? Like, so I would say a big thing too is just like making sure you can be able to win those controls in those series, but a lot of it right now, until the year develops more and more and like people get better and better and like figure it out more and more with everything going on, it's going to be a lot of also just like prepping, performing on the day, and then making sure you're able to generate kills when you can, and when you're playing fundamentally, like how can you set yourself up to win as consistently as possible? Kind of like what I was explaining with the LAG, like we kept setting ourselves up for win, and then capitalizing on that, right? Like capitalizing on the other team's mistakes. Like that's a big thing too, is just when 2 top teams play each other, it's not always about what the other team is doing as much as it's like you're not making the mistakes, what you're doing, and then again, like what you're capitalizing on when you have the opportunity to do so. So, I mean, it's a very competitive league. I'm very excited to watch a lot of those matches go down.
Well, it's competitive against amongst 4 teams. I don't know about everybody else.
I mean, I'm speaking from my perspective right now.
Yeah.
Like
from your perspective, for sure.
We have to make sure we're on our shit.
But y'all are 17-1 against everybody else. So anyway, last question from Mike on Twitter. With the new spawns and potential new maps coming into the rotation, like Greece or Rio, you see a world where this game becomes more balanced / beneficial for sub players. Feels very AR heavy currently on the maps that we're playing. What are your thoughts on that, Chris?
I think the new spawns were kind of lackluster. I think they got a little bit better here and there. I think Terminal.
There's some maps that got worse. Terminal
I was saying this the other day. I'll try and make this as quick as possible. I'm very confused where we went wrong in Call of Duty. I know it was MW 2019. I know when. Trust me, I'm very clear on the date.
I know you know when. Yeah.
But like, it's not even about squad spawns. It's just like, I swear, like when you watch the spawn system sometimes, and like you watch someone spawn right behind someone that spawns right behind someone, and you're just like, what happened? Like no, seriously, like
where do we go wrong?
It's just like, I feel like it can't be that complicated to make the spawn system like team spawns here. If you block here and here, they spawn here, and like some little nuances in between that. Like I just feel like now it's just like you watch spawns and you're just like, there's no explanation on this earth that he should spawn there. But like, you can also read the bullshit because like you kind of just have to like, you know, constantly like, you know, analyze it and like always expect stuff. But it's just like, what happened to where like, you know, even like Invasion P2, for example, you're spawning blue, they're spawning Palace. There's no middle spawn. And then if you're blocking blue and you're spawning Palace, but you take 2 steps, they spawn behind you Palace or to the side of you Palace. And then you spawn and you're fighting each other off the spawn of you're spawning on top of each other. It's like
literally it's 5 feet from each other.
Like how, like again, how on planet Earth does somewhat like again, maybe this is harder than I'm expecting.
Spawn that happens, right? This is not like what happened to you guys on Subbase on a P3.
That was crazy.
Where you guys were like outside server ice and some guys spawned behind you.
That was nuts. But that does happen too. But regardless, like how
not as much as a P2 invasion spawn where it literally consistently happens if you don't push out.
So now again, I'm not a game developer and I'm always going to throw that out there. I don't know how complicated this is, but you can't tell me they don't look at that spawn system and they're like, all right, if he spawns he spawns there. Maybe someone should spawn in the middle somewhere if they're both blocked. But instead they're just spawning on top of each other. It's like, I just feel like it's not that crazy to happen. Like, so if you like, so I don't know. I just feel like the spawns in this game and then the year before that and the year before that and the year before that, other than Cold War, I just feel like they're a little confusing on like, I can't be this complicated to just make them a little bit better. And I swear.
I just think, Chris, they try and spawn. I'm very curious what the real reason is.
No, there has to be a reason.
I'm convinced the reason, this is maybe Ben conspiracy talk. I'm convinced that they look at the data on player life cycles as far as like, you know, within a map and also like how that affects people trying the game and not like giving up. And like they just try and make spawns to get people in the action as fast as possible and give them revenge kills when they need it. And that's why you get shit like what happens in the Invasion P2. Like that's the intended purpose.
Okay.
The problem with that is that it totally fucks up the flow of 4v4 competitive because it goes against the mantra of being able to control the map and spawn people predictably, like we had in Cold War, for example.
I don't know. It's not, you just can't listen. I know we got to go, but you can't tell me it's that hard to look at the spawns from a 4v4 perspective for maybe the CDL patch only. I know they don't want it to be different from pubs, blah, blah, blah. I don't fucking care. It just, those spawning on top of each other all the fucking time make no sense. And if you want to argue for the casual getting revenge, that's bullshit because no casual player wants to fucking spawn and get shot at right away. No one does. It's not fun. It makes no sense. So to answer the question, spawns are still a huge confusion for me. I'm still underwhelmed with the fact that they seem to just not be able to ever get it right. When it comes to the new maps and stuff, hopefully they're a little bit more beneficial for subs. It would be cool to see. But you gotta, I mean, you gotta kind of have to wait. You have to wait and see how the map and the spawns play out. Because no matter what, when you have a map, if the spawns are really far from each other, sometimes you're gonna have to use an AR depending on the head glitches and stuff. If the spawns are really close with each other, even on a really big map, sometimes subs are just better to have because you spawn so close that like you're already in the action. So it just depends on what we get. But we gotta wrap it up. I gotta go take this call.
All right. Well, let me do the outro then. Appreciate y'all tuning in. This is another episode of Scrap Time. You can check us out on all audio platforms where you listen to podcasts. Search up the Scrap Time Pod. We're also on the Crowder CWL YouTube channel. You can obviously watch the reboots as well. We try to do these every week. We'll probably do our next episode on Monday next week because Chris got to travel to Boston. And then we'll probably do one after Boston. There'll be Roster Mania, a bunch of other stuff to take a look at. So we should be putting these out more regularly. Not the action's happening. So appreciate y'all tuning in, and we'll see you guys on
having fun with it.
All right.
Bang.
Peace.